When God revealed he should marry her, the incredible transformation exposed his true blessing. In the days when the judges ruled Israel, a famine struck the land. Elimelech, a man of Bethlehem in Judah, took his wife Naomi and their 2 sons and journeyed to the land of Moab, seeking sustenance. In time, death claimed Elimelech, and Naomi was left with her sons, who married Moabite women, Ruth and Orpah. After about 10 years, tragedy struck again, and both sons succumbed to death, leaving Naomi and her daughters-in-law in dire straits, bereaved and vulnerable. In her heartache, Naomi heard that the Lord had visited his people and provided food in Bethlehem. Resolving to return home, she prepared to leave Moab. In a moment of despair and familial bond, Naomi urged her daughters-in-law to remain in their homeland and find new husbands. Orpah reluctantly agreed, but Ruth clung to her mother-in-law, resolute in her loyalty. With tearful determination, Ruth declared, "Entreat me not to leave you or to turn back from following after you. For wherever you go, I will go, wherever you lodge, I will lodge, your people shall be my people, and your God my God." As Naomi and Ruth approached Bethlehem, the excitement stirred the town. "Is this Naomi?" they murmured, recognizing the once familiar figure. Naomi responded, "Do not call me Naomi. Call me Mara, for the Almighty has dealt very bitterly with me." Yet, amidst her sorrow, Ruth's heart brimmed with determination. The fields lay before them, rich with promise, and she resolved to glean, sustaining them with the remnants of the harvest. Daily, Ruth toiled under the sun, gathering kernels with steadfast diligence, though whispers of her foreign origins followed her. "Who is this Moabite woman?" they would say, but her spirit remained undeterred. She was focused, not on the judgments of those around her, but on the 2 lives she sought to nourish. The whisper of hope tugged at her, the words of Naomi echoing about the kinsman redeemer, a man named Boaz, Naomi's relative, a man of standing in Bethlehem. One fateful evening, Naomi instructed Ruth, urging her to approach Boaz at the threshing floor, an act drenched in cultural significance. Under the cloak of night, with heart pounding and faith ablaze, Ruth lay down at his feet, seeking his protection amidst the uncertainty of their future. Awakened with a start, Boaz's eyes met Ruth's in the dim light, and he discovered a heart filled with tenacity and kindness. Moved by her selflessness, he recognized her not just as a widow, but as a woman of noble character. Their eyes spoke volumes, and in that holy moment, the air thickened with divine purpose. Boaz revealed the law of redemption, and the heart of both was stirred. Was this God's providence at last? Yet, Boaz knew he must consult a nearer kinsman before any covenant could be made. Trepidation gripped Ruth, high hopes mingled with fears. She returned to Naomi, hope ignited in her spirit but uncertainty clouding their hearts. As the days pressed on, the whisper of redemption grew louder, leading them to remain steadfast in prayer and faith, clinging tightly to the promise of God's provision. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select All Notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As the sunset painted the sky over Bethlehem, Boaz prepared to meet the man with the right of redemption, the only obstacle standing in the way of their fated love. The weight of decision lay heavy upon him, and with every step towards the unknown, the hopes of Ruth, Naomi, and his own heart trembled with anticipation. Would this be the turning point in their stories, the moment where God's sovereign plan unfolded in breathtaking clarity? As the dawn broke over Bethlehem, Boaz made his way to the city gate, where the elders convened. A sense of urgency swirled within him, he felt the weight of destiny pressing against his chest. He stood resolute, for this was no ordinary day. This was a day shaped by the very hand of God. Upon arriving at the gate, Boaz observed the nearer kinsman, who had the first right to redeem Naomi's property and her daughter-in-law Ruth. Summoning courage, Boaz called out to him, "Come here, friend, and sit down." The man, curious but unaware of the gravity of the moment, joined him, and soon, 10 elders of the town gathered, their presence lending authority to the proceedings. Boaz spoke clearly, his words laced with the purpose of the Almighty. "Naomi, who has returned from the land of Moab, is selling the parcel of land that belonged to our brother Elimelech. I thought I should inform you and say, buy it in the presence of those sitting here and in the presence of the elders of my people. If you will redeem it, but if you will not, tell me, that I may know." The nearer kinsman's eyes widened, for the chance to redeem land was indeed a treasure, one that held the promise of prosperity. "I will redeem it," he replied without hesitation. But Boaz, with an artful heart, continued, "The day you buy the field from the hand of Naomi, you must also acquire Ruth, the Moabitess, the widow of the deceased, in order to perpetuate the name of the deceased in his inheritance." The air shifted, the gravity of Boaz's words hung delicately in the balance. The kinsman's face paled. "I cannot redeem it for myself," he said, "lest I impair my own inheritance. Take my right of redemption for yourself, for I cannot redeem it." In that moment, the hand of God was seen moving mightily. What seemed like a simple transaction had just become the doorway to the unfolding of a far greater divine plan. Boaz's heart raced with thankfulness to the God who orchestrated these events, as the nearer kinsman removed his sandal, a symbol of relinquishing his claim. The elders bore witness, their voices rising in blessing, affirming the divine transaction that had transpired before them. "We are witnesses," they proclaimed, "May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your house like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the house of Israel. May you be renowned in Ephrathah and be celebrated in Bethlehem." Boaz turned toward Ruth, who had been waiting with quiet hope. As he took her hand, joy and relief flooded her spirit. He declared, "You are my wife, and the Lord's purpose shall thrive in our house." Together, they turned towards the future swathed in promise, a union forged in the heart of Bethlehem, where God's blessing cascaded upon them like the morning dew, fresh and life-giving. And it was not without reason that the women of the town, upon hearing of Ruth's marriage to Boaz, rejoiced. "Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer," they cried, their voices lifting in thanksgiving. For in this union was the seed of hope planted among the people. Was not their lineage destined for greatness? Little did they know that through Ruth and Boaz, fulfillment of God's grand covenant was unfolding. They would become the great-grandparents of King David, ushering in a legacy woven through eternity. As the sun set over Bethlehem that evening, God's hand of providence painted their tale upon the tapestry of time. What they could not yet see, was that a greater Redeemer awaited the seed who would crush the serpent's head and bring forth salvation for all mankind. For in the story of Ruth and Boaz lay a profound truth: redemption belongs to the Lord, and he had only just begun to weave his perfect plan through their unwavering faith. Amid their newfound joy, they remained watchful, for the story was not yet complete. What else awaited, hidden behind the veil of time, in the sovereign heart of God? And it came to pass, after their union had been celebrated under the watchful eyes of the elders and the joyful clamor of the townspeople, that Ruth and Boaz returned to their home, enveloped in the warmth of a new beginning. Each step they took was filled with hope, yet beneath the surface lurked the complexities of a heart made new. Ruth gazed at Boaz, her heart swelling with gratitude. She had left her homeland, endured loss, and embraced a life previously unknown to her. Now, she found herself embraced in the legacy of Israel's household. Yet, even amidst joy, an echo of uncertainty reverberated within her soul. As days turned into weeks, Naomi became a mother again, and love bound their little family together as tightly as the threads of the robes that adorned them. Naomi, filled with the spirit of wisdom, observed the devotion that blossomed between Ruth and Boaz. She understood too well the chapters that had led them here, realizing how the hand of the Almighty had guided their journey. "Tonight, dear daughter," Naomi said one evening, as twilight cast a gentle glow upon their dwelling, "you shall not simply dwell as a wife but as a bearer of promise. Seek the Lord's favor, lay yourself at his feet, for there is a plan that exceeds even your faithful heart. Ruth, with her spirit conscientious and tender, regarded Naomi's words with reverence, for it was the wisdom of a mother that she held dear. That same night, with a heart beating in rhythmic anticipation of divine appointment, she approached Boaz amid the harvest, as the field glimmered beneath the stars. The scent of barley hung in the air, ripe and fragrant, an offering of abundance. "Boaz," she murmured, her voice a soft whisper, "I come as your servant, and I ask that you take me under your wings, for you are a kinsman redeemer." His eyes, filled with surprise and profound gratitude, fell upon her. "Blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, you have shown great kindness in seeking my name," he responded, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Fear not, I will do all you ask, for I have witnessed your steadfast love toward your mother-in-law and toward me." As they spoke, the night held its breath, for within the stillness of the air lay the weight of destiny. Stars danced above, as though celebrating a divine orchestration long ordained. Yet, even as Boaz accepted responsibility to redeem his family line, he spoke with a careful heart. "There is another nearer than I, who has the first right to redeem. Stay here until morning, and let the hand of Providence direct our path." And so the night passed filled with conversations of dreams, hopes, and shared laughter. When dawn began to light the horizon, Ruth's spirit soared. She gathered the barley grains that Boaz gifted her, a token of love and promise, and returned to Naomi, her heart brimming with hope. "What did he say, my daughter?" Naomi inquired with eager expression. "What he promised stands firm, but there is another who must be consulted first," Ruth responded, her voice steady yet tinged with anticipation. Then Naomi, knowing the ways of the Lord, leaned closer, her eyes bright with insight. "Trust in the Lord, he shall act upon your motherly heart. His plans are beyond us, unfolding through obedience and faith." In that moment, Ruth understood that this story was not just about her alone, it was interwoven with the grand narrative of creation, a tapestry of redemption binding generations together. The women of Bethlehem had been right to speak of blessings, and she felt the swell of God's faithfulness resting upon her shoulders. For in the depths of her journey, God's sovereign purpose whispered a greater legacy awaited. And as Ruth and Boaz stood together, hearts emboldened by love and commitment, the tapestry of salvation began to unfurl, hinting at a Redeemer yet to come, a heritage transcending time, culminating in the fulfillment of divine promise. The hearts of the faithful lay buried under the surface of every choice, and even in their stories, the promise of tomorrow beckoned. Yet they could not fathom that through their very choices, God was weaving his eternal story, leading to a day when all creation would see the fullness of his redemption revealed. As the sun reclaimed the sky on the morrow, an atmosphere weighed with anticipation settled over the bustling town of Bethlehem. The quiet murmurs of the townsfolk blended with the call of morning, unaware of the divine orchestration unfolding just beyond their sight. Ruth, burdened by a mixture of hope and unease, approached her mother-in-law with a heart inclined toward prayer. "Naomi," she began, her spirit seeking yet another dose of wisdom, "I feel the weight of this plan upon me. What will become of our lives in the hands of this kinsman redeemer?" Naomi, reflecting the grace of her years, looked deeply into Ruth's eyes. "My daughter, the Lord has not forgotten his promises. In all that you do, remember that he will guide you. You must go and meet Boaz, for he acts in fidelity to his kin, but do not rush ahead. Pray for guidance, and trust the one who has seen both our suffering and our redemption." With these words, Ruth steeled her heart and committed herself anew to the unfolding journey. That very day, she returned to the field where Boaz labored, and approached him with humility and hope. "Good sir," she called out, her voice clear but trembling with emotion, "will you keep your promise and speak to the nearer kinsman about our fate?" Boaz turned, his expression thoughtful, filled with the grace he had shown her from their first meeting. "I shall do as you have asked, Ruth, for you have found favor in my sight, and your love for Naomi speaks volumes." As the sun cast long shadows over the field, Boaz gathered the elders of the city, their presence essential to the matters of redemption, and at the city gate, where all deeds were sealed, he stood before the nearer kinsman. "Come, my brother, there is a matter concerning the land of Elimelech that I must bring before you," Boaz began, his words deliberate, measuring the weight of each syllable. The kinsman answered, "What is it that you desire, Boaz?" "The land is to be redeemed, but there is more to this story," Boaz continued, "for Ruth, the Moabitess, has come to us with a heart like ours, seeking your hand in marriage. Will you redeem the land and take her as your wife?" At this, the nearer kinsman hesitated, aware of the complications that this union would bring. "I cannot redeem the land, lest I mar my own inheritance," he replied, the burden now upon Boaz. Then the elders watched in hushed expectation as Boaz removed his sandal, an act signifying the transfer of rights. "You have loosed your claim, and in so doing, I will take Ruth under my wings, for she has proven righteous in her devotion," he declared solemnly. The townsfolk witnessed the beauty of God's design, a love sealed by covenant, held in the balance of obedience. With the elders proclaiming blessings over them, Ruth and Boaz stepped forth, united in a covenant forged by divine purpose. This day would be remembered, for not only had they forged a new legacy, but within the heart of Israel, a story of redemption was being spun, a line that would lead to the promises of a Redeemer prophesied by the ancients. And as Ruth and Boaz returned to their home, an unseen hand was at work, weaving the fabric of faith for a future yet unveiled. Unknown to them, the full revelation of God's eternal plan was on the horizon, awaiting that moment when the fullness of time would bring forth the one who would redeem all humanity. A seed was being planted, grounded in the love of two faithful hearts, destined to blossom into the lineage that would usher in a hope beyond comprehension. For the echoes of their obedience would resonate through the ages, revealing that the heart of God was never distant from those who sought him earnestly. Under the grace of a setting sun, Ruth looked upon Boaz with a heart overflowing, as if the profound love they had secured with mutual vows wrapped around them like a holy mantle. With each step into their new life, she sensed the very presence of God illuminating their path. "There is redemption woven into the fabric of our union," she remarked softly. Their days turned into weeks, and the signs of blessing became vivid. The harvest of barley had come, a symbol of abundance bestowed upon them as the fruits of labor flourished. Under the watchful eye of Providence, Ruth took to the fields beside Boaz, her hands skilled in gathering, while he encouraged her with tender words. "Fear not, my beloved Ruth," Boaz would reassure, "for the Lord's hand is upon us. The Lord will provide as we seek him diligently." In the quiet moments, they would pray together, offering gratitude for the journey that had brought them to this point. The fullness of their love grew, strengthened by the seasons they weathered together. Meanwhile, word of Ruth's steadfastness and Boaz's integrity spread through Bethlehem. The townsfolk, once filled with skepticism, now spoke of them with admiration. "Indeed, a Moabitess has embraced our people," they would say, marveling at the bond drawn from faith and love. Yet, it was not mere whispers that brought hope into their lives but the unfolding promise of lineage. One evening, with the stars shining brightly overhead, Ruth shared a dream that had stirred her heart. "Boaz," she began, her voice trembling with emotion, "I have seen in my heart the promise of many children, blessings that shall echo throughout our house. I hold tightly to this vision, for I believe it is from the Lord." Boaz gazed at her, a smile spreading across his face, for he too had felt a stirring within the awareness that their love was destined for greatness. "Indeed, Ruth, the Lord has destined our lineage for something powerful. Let us bring forth his legacy to the generations that follow." As time flowed, so did the abundance of their harvest, and soon the joy of a child enveloped their home. Ruth bore a son, whom they named Obed, an embodiment of hope for Naomi, who held her grandson close and wept tears of joy. "Blessed be the Lord who has not left me desolate," Naomi declared. "For your love has restored my joy, Ruth." The women of the town blessed Ruth, proclaiming, "A son has been born to Naomi, a Redeemer has come to those who were bereft of future." And so it was that Obed became the father of Jesse, who would father David, the shepherd king. Herein lay the wondrous tapestry of purpose, each thread meticulously woven by God's hand. Yet, in the shadow of these blessings, the promise echoed far beyond their lifetime. It whispered of a future king, one whose reign would extend beyond earthly thrones and whose covenant would resound through time, the Messiah awaited by all. Through Ruth and Boaz, the celestial hand of God was drawing nearer, revealing his sovereign plan, preparing the hearts of generations for the entrance of grace itself. For what they had not yet realized was that this union was but the first chapter of a grand narrative. Their obedience would pave the path for the ultimate Redeemer, the one who would transform all hearts forever. The day of fulfillment lingered beneath the horizon, and as heaven watched, the true story had just begun. In the days that followed the joyous birth of Obed, the community of Bethlehem buzzed with excitement, for the child was not merely a blessing to Ruth and Boaz but a beacon of hope to all who had witnessed the Lord's hand in their lives. Whispered praises filled the air, and as hearts turned toward the joy of the moment, little did they know how their faith would be tested. One morning, as the sun broke through the meandering clouds, bringing warmth to the earth, Naomi approached Ruth with a sense of urgency in her heart. With eyes that sparkled with wisdom and love, she spoke, "My daughter, we must seek the Lord's guidance as we raise this child. He is the promise of our redemption, our lineage restored. But we must be vigilant to nurture his spirit." Ruth nodded, understanding the weight of her mother-in-law's words. She gathered Obed in her arms, cherishing the very breath of the child as she ventured to the fields once more, where Boaz labored among the harvesters. As she neared the edge of the field, she saw him standing tall, a figure who mirrored strength and gentleness. "Boaz," she called, her voice melodious yet filled with purpose. He turned, and their eyes met, sparking warmth that seemed to transcend the very soil between them. "Ruth, my beloved," he greeted with relief painting his features. "How fares our son today?" "He thrives, Boaz," she replied, her heart swelling with affection. "Naomi suggests we seek a tutor for Obed. It is essential we nurture his understanding of the Lord and our people as traditions." Boaz nodded gravely, recognizing the import of their task. "Indeed, we are entrusted with this gift. Let us not delay in fulfilling our duty. We will raise him in accordance with the Lord's statutes, for he carries a legacy that must be cherished." As days turned to weeks, Obed grew in wisdom and grace, captivating the hearts of those around him. Yet amidst their joy, whispers of concern began to brew in the shadows. A famine threatened the land, and the bounty that had once filled their granaries began to dwindle. Some in the town looked to Ruth and Boaz, questioning their fortune. "Surely, the Lord has turned his face from them," they murmured. "What will become of this family, now burdened by trials?" When Ruth caught wind of these murmurs, she felt a storm brewing in her spirit. But rather than despair, she chose to act. She gathered the women of the town and shared her vision of provision, uniting their hearts in prayer. "Let us seek his face, for our community has thrived upon faith and unity." The women embraced her words, their voices rising like sweet incense before the throne of grace. In that moment, Boaz returned from the fields with a heart heavy yet hopeful. He extended his hands toward Ruth and the women, confident in God's assurance. "Though the world may witness our struggles, we are the children of the promise and grace shall sustain us." As the days grew darker, and the land cried out for rain, Ruth clung to her faith, believing that the Lord would answer their prayers. Then, one fateful day, as she stood by the door, watching the skies, a messenger approached, breathless and filled with news. "The Lord has remembered his people. The rains have come. The groaning earth will bring forth harvest once more." A wave of relief surged through Ruth and Boaz, for in this moment they saw the hand of Providence. They gathered the townspeople and rejoiced, proclaiming the faithfulness of the Lord. Yet in the midst of celebration, Boaz sensed a deeper stirring, a whisper in the depths of his heart. As he glanced at Ruth, he was reminded, what must be fulfilled is yet to come. Thus, even among blessings and trials, the tapestry of their lives continued to unfold, each thread woven with divine purpose, revealing not just the miracle of their lineage but hinting at an even greater salvation approaching the horizon. For as they stood on the precipice of promise fulfilled, they could not yet see the fullness of God's redemptive plan that awaited to envelop all creation, hinting towards a future king destined to wear the crown of glory. In the season of renewed hope, as the rains quenched the dry earth and the fields began to yield once again, a profound change began to manifest within the hearts of Ruth and Boaz. Their family, once marked by loss and grief, now shimmered with the light of redemption, yet the weight of their past still lingered, a current of unspoken fears coiling just beneath their joy. One evening, as the sun dipped low in the sky, wrapping the horizon in a golden glow, Naomi called her family together. She sensed a stirring in the air, a moment pregnant with the implications of their lineage. Her heart, ever attuned to the voice of the Lord, whispered into the silence, "Our God is doing more than we can see, let us prepare." "Boaz," she implored, her tone earnest, "the time must come when we reflect on the inheritance of our lineage. There are duties not yet fulfilled." Boaz looked deeply into Naomi's eyes, feeling the pang of wisdom steeped in urgency. "What do you mean, Naomi? Speak plainly, for I cannot discern what remains to be done." "It is time to consider the future," she replied. "With Obed as the promise of our line, we must ensure he has a path forward. The Lord has granted you favor and wealth in the eyes of our people, yet have you taken heed of the heart of God in this matter?" Boaz paused, his heart quickening as realization dawned. The potential of a legacy was not merely in wealth or respect, it flowed through the bonds of marriage, a covenant to be held sacred. "Are you suggesting," he began, but Naomi interjected, "You know what must be done. A kinsman redeemer stands ready to fulfill his duty." Ruth, who had stood in silent reverence, felt a warmth envelop her heart. The stirring in her spirit grew louder, echoing the murmurs she had heard before. "Boaz," she spoke, "if the Lord leads you, let us not shy from his call." Her words, steeped in conviction, swirled in the air like sweet incense. Boaz gathered in a breath, his thoughts racing. In the fragility of their joy he sensed a profound truth blooming like a flower amidst the thorns, the promise of redemption extended beyond themselves. "Then tomorrow, I shall take a stand to claim what is rightfully ours, I will approach our relative and speak of my intentions." As night cascaded over the land, cloaking all in shadows, Ruth prayed fervently. "O Lord, may your will be done. You have brought forth beauty from ashes, and brought us from the depths. Guide us now as we please you." At the break of dawn, Boaz set forth, his heart fortified. He navigated the bustling streets, determination marking his steps. As he reached the gates of Bethlehem, the elders gathered and awaited his words, curiosity etched upon their faces. "Listen," Boaz beckoned, his voice steady with the authority of purpose. "There is a matter of redemption that I must address. Our kin, Naomi, has come back from Moab with her daughter-in-law. Their late husband's land is at stake, and I stand willing to redeem it." A murmur coursed through the crowd, for value was not only in the land but in the revival it could bring to their people. "And if you shall redeem the land, you must also accept Ruth as your wife," an elder cautioned, his gaze piercing. The weight of the implications hung heavy in the air, for Boaz realized that such a bond meant embracing all that Ruth had endured. "Indeed," he affirmed, resolve springing from within. "Yet, let me be clear. Should there be a clashing claim, I will not hesitate to yield for what is right." Surrounded by eager whispers and expectant hearts, Boaz took a step closer to his destiny, the lineage of King David unwinding before him, yet he remained unaware of how this moment foreshadowed the arrival of a greater Redeemer. Little did he know that with every step toward Ruth, the very foundations of history were trembling with the weight of God's promises, as beyond the horizon lay the nexus of divine salvation. For in this orchestrated meeting, in the dust of an ancient town, God's sovereign plan was being revealed, a tapestry woven with grace revealing not just a lineage, but the pathway to eternal hope. The song of redemption hummed softly in the air, beckoning all who would hear. As the sun ascended in the eastern sky, warming the earth with its golden rays, a quiet anticipation enveloped the gates of Bethlehem. The people, drawn by the solemnity of Boaz's declaration, gathered around. The elders of wisdom and experience, looked upon Boaz, the man of influence, his expression a mixture of resolve and a vulnerability known only to those who knew the weight of such a decision. "Boaz," spoke one elder, his voice resonating through the assembly, "you have made a bold claim this day. We shall inquire of the other kinsman. If he shall redeem, let it be, if not, then your offer remains steadfast, and you may take Ruth as your wife." With fervent hearts, the townsfolk observed the unfolding drama. The destiny of a family hung delicately in the balance of a single decision rooted in God's divine will. Boaz nodded, a mixture of hope and uncertainty swirling within him. As the warmth of midday encroached upon the land, the other kinsman, whose name was unknown to many, approached the gates. The crowd parted, whispers of curiosity filling the air. "Come forth," called Boaz, and the man stepped foot into the light, his demeanor calm and collected, unaware of the righteousness that awaited his decision. "Friend," Boaz began, "the matter lies before us. Naomi returns from Moab bearing the legacy of her late husband. The land belonging to our kin is to be redeemed, and you have first right as the nearest redeemer." The kinsman paused, weighing his words, "I shall redeem it." Hope ignited briefly in the heart of Boaz. But before he could express his gratitude, the elder continued, "But know this, to redeem the land requires you to also take Ruth, the Moabite, as your wife, that her lineage may continue through your house." The kinsman's brows furrowed, the weight of the implications evident. "I cannot do so," he declared, the corners of his mouth tightening in distress. "It may jeopardize my own inheritance." "You redeem it for yourself, for I shall withdraw." A hushed awe cascaded through the crowd, as Boaz's heart soared. The kinsman's refusal granted him the very blessing he sought. "In the presence of the elders and all of you, witnesses of our day, I take to myself the responsibility of redemption. I receive the land and Ruth as my wife," Boaz proclaimed. His voice rang like a clarion call, echoing providential assurance in every heart present. The onlookers reacted, some with joy while others with a contemplative silence, recognizing the hand of God at work. Boaz turned his gaze toward Ruth, who stood among the ladies of the town, her countenance radiant yet quietly reverent. They locked eyes, and within that gaze, an unspoken promise brimmed, signifying not just the union of two but the intertwining of destinies. "May the Lord make you like Rachel and Leah, who together built the house of Israel." The crowd erupted in blessings and joy. Days turned into weeks as the wedding preparations unfolded, petals strewn upon the ground, fragrant with the aroma of celebration. Yet, amidst the bustle of joy, Naomi observed the unseen divine threads weaving through their lives, sensing that this was but a part of God's greater narrative. An unexpected hush fell upon the gathering one evening at the home in Bethlehem as Ruth cradled Obed, her child, the fruit of their union. Naomi's heart swelled as she beheld the miracle of new life. "Surely," she exclaimed, "the Lord has not forsaken us. He has brought forth a Redeemer for us, not only in our hearts but for generations to come." As the days rolled into years, Obed grew strong, his laughter echoing like a soft melody through the hills. His very presence was a testament to the redemptive plan birthed out of their sorrow. Yet in the quiet moments, Ruth and Boaz could not foresee how this lineage would unfurl beyond their wildest imaginations, ultimately leading to the lineage of the Messiah. For even then, in that humble home in Bethlehem, a divine mystery awaited to be unveiled. The hearts of many would be moved toward grace, for God's sovereign plan was still unfolding like a scroll, revealing that the true seed of redemption lay not just for them, but for all who would believe. As dawn broke once more over Bethlehem, the warmth of a new day drew life from the soil, and the settled dust of expectation began to swirl again. You could hear the laughter of children spilling out into the streets, and the distant call of a shepherd echoed across the hills, marking the routines of life returning, a life transformed by divine providence. Boaz and Ruth stood side by side, their hearts knitted together in sacred vows. The town brimmed not just with gossip, but with faith. "Come, beloved," Boaz beckoned, as they walked hand in hand to the well, where the townsfolk gathered, their joyous faces shining like the sun reflecting upon the waters. "Today, we gather," Boaz proclaimed, his voice carrying the gentle authority of a shepherd, "to celebrate the unfathomable love of our God. The Almighty has guided our paths, for in Him, we discover not only our future but the binding of families through His eternal promise." A chorus of amens and blessings rose from the crowd, and Ruth felt the swelling in her heart, a spiritual awakening setting deep roots in the soil of her life. Her metamorphosis from a Moabite widow to a cherished wife, adorned with a newfound identity as a daughter of Israel, spoke to the mercies of God that defy human understanding. But as days turned to seasons, whispers of uncertainty lingered in the air. The people would often speak of Naomi, the matriarch whose bitterness had turned to joy, mindful of the past that clung to her like a cloak. "Is this truly how the Lord unfolds His tapestry?" Some would murmur. Others would say, was her life not imbued with sorrow, birthed from the depths of despair? Naomi observed with discerning eyes, the blessing of her family renewing hope in the hearts of many around. "Children," she called to Ruth and Obed, "in your laughter lies the song of the Redeemer. Our story unfolds not merely for our sake but for the generations to come. God has drawn near, not to abandon, but to redeem." As Obed grew and explored the world, rejoicing in the strength of his father Boaz and the nurturing heart of Ruth, time began to reveal shadows that loomed ahead. The bread that Naomi baked, and the laughter that filled their home, would eventually be tested. In a solemn tone that belied the festivities, Boaz spoke one evening as they gathered around the table, "The path ahead may not be sprinkled with rose petals, for life is more than moments of joy. The Lord's hand works through trials as much as it does through blessings." Ruth, understanding the weight of his words, whispered a prayer in her heart, a humble request for courage to meet whatever might lie ahead. Her faith, once a flicker, now blazed brightly against the darkened sky as she recalled how the Lord had turned her mourning into dancing. Days passed, and a murmuring began to rise among the neighboring villages. The house of David was seen as a banner of hope, yet much remained shrouded in mystery. Boaz and Ruth, ever vigilant under the watchful gaze of the Almighty, steered their hearts toward obedience while quietly nurturing their son. In the hidden corners of their lives, unseen forces stirred. A king awaited to be born from their line, one whose reign would echo through all generations. At that moment, in the quiet of their humble dwelling, a veil of prophecy rested heavily in the atmosphere. The promise of a Savior stirred in the heart of history, a whisper in the silence, "For behold, a virgin shall conceive, and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel." The winds of Providence swept lightly across Bethlehem, hinting at the marvelous majesty hidden within the folds of time. For what lay ahead was not merely a lineage but the ultimate story of redemption, a progression toward glory, where God's sovereign hand would beckon forth a plan that would forever change the course of humanity. In that sacred space, the truth echoed, "The heart of God relentlessly beats for His people, intertwining destinies for His divine purposes," revealing that this was merely the beginning of a story as grand as heaven itself. In the fullness of time, when the winds whispered secrets of redemption, Bethlehem found itself on the precipice of unimaginable grace. The lineage of Ruth and Boaz unfolded not only as a tale of love and sacrifice but as the very canvas upon which God would write His wondrous narrative, a tapestry destined for eternity. As the years rolled by, Obed grew into a young man, his heart engraved with the legacy of his parents, a legacy thick with faith, obedience, and the promise of the Almighty. He often walked with his father in the fields, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath his feet and the whispers of a divine calling in the rustle of the barley. "Father," he would ask, his eyes bright with wonder, "what is our purpose in this life? Why does our family carry such a sacred history?" Boaz would smile with wisdom forged in adversity and faith. "My son, our purpose is woven into the greater story of God's redemptive plan. We are the vessels through which His grace flows. However, our legacy is not for our own glory but for a world that hungers for hope. Remember this, Obed, with every choice you make, seek the heart of God, and you will lead many to His light." Meanwhile, Ruth, herself a beacon of faith and resilience, lavished love upon her son. She shared all she had learned from Naomi, instilling in Obed the importance of heritage and devotion to the Lord. Together, she and Boaz nurtured his spirit, teaching him the ways of their people, prayers spoken into the cool night air as the stars twinkled like promises long ago declared. Yet as the pulse of life flourished around them, clouds of uncertainty stirred in the broader world. A king was to be appointed, and the hearts of men wavered in pursuit of political power. A potential threat loomed, seeking to unsettle the very foundations of their divine purpose. Whispers of discontent drifted upon the breeze, and shadows began to darken the hope-filled streets of Bethlehem. In the face of growing tribulations, Ruth never wavered. Her heart remained steadfast, anchored in the promises of God. Boaz, she spoke one evening as they gathered to pray, the road ahead may seem daunting, but we must believe. As the Lord has guided us thus far, He will not forsake His covenant. Our union has birthed a legacy, and I trust He has woven our story into His divine plan. Boaz, his gaze steady but filled with concern, replied, "We shall remain vigilant, beloved. The Lord is our fortress. Let us continue to lead through faith, drawing from the strength He provides. Together, we will uphold righteousness and watch for the unfolding of His purposes." As days turned to months, hope deferred pressed upon the hearts of the people beneath the looming promise of rule. Yet even as fear sought to sway the minds of many, Naomi, embodying the wisdom of ages, rallied the women of the town one fateful evening. "Listen," she proclaimed with fervor, "God has not forgotten us. He will deliver on His promise, through faith and unity." The women gathered, their voices rising like an unbreakable chain, supplicating for their families and homeland. Together they sought the face of the Lord, a chorus of faith emanating through the air, chips of hope solidifying into an impenetrable force. In that sacred moment, the Spirit of the Lord swept through their assembly with a fierce wind baying forth the promise of divine intervention. Obed, innocent and blessed, witnessed the outpouring of fervent prayers lifting toward heaven, and he too began to understand the gravity of his inheritance. Meanwhile, the heart of heaven beat steadily, orchestrating events beyond their sight. As night fell over the fields, the stars shone, a celestial witness to the narrative unfolding below, pulsing with a promise that had long been laid. A pregnant silence heralded the dawn of a new beginning. In the town of Bethlehem, an unexpected traveler approached. Unbeknownst to them, she was the vessel through which the prophecy of old would burst forth, a young maiden named Mary, favored and chosen to bear the Savior of the world. The lineage of Ruth and Boaz spoke through her life, a click in the divine clockwork, woven into the very fabric of redemption. And so, as the humble town stirred with the bustling sound of prophecy coming to fruition, the destiny of Ruth, Boaz, and Obed culminated in a crescendo of divine grace. Little did they realize as households rejoiced on that fateful night, the legacy of love, sacrifice, and fidelity had emerged from their devotion, paving the way for the light of the world. For in the convergence of their story lay the heart of God's purpose, to reveal the one who would crush the serpent's head, ushering in an eternal kingdom where all would find hope and redemption. The legacy of Ruth and Boaz became the cornerstone of salvation, manifesting the profound truth that with God, every heart led boldly in faith can change the course of history. As shadows of doubt danced against the brilliance of dawn, the families of Israel held on to their shared narrative, renewed and transformed, standing on the brink of something far greater than any earthly king. In their collective obedience, the path to the true Redeemer had been paved, ushering forth the promise that echoed, God's heart is always towards His people, and His plans are abundant in life, hope, and grace, a testament to His unchanging love. And so, beloved, as we reflect on the journey of Ruth and Boaz, a testament to unwavering faith and divine providence, let us steadfastly cling to the truth that our God is working, even in our uncertain seasons, to weave into existence the very hopes and dreams that align with His glorious will. As we close, may your faith be strengthened, and may you trust that God's mighty hand is at work in your life as well. If you are inspired by this powerful narrative of God's faithfulness, you need to subscribe now to stay connected to God's Word. Let us join together in spreading biblical truth and transforming lives. Package this with a hearty like now, ensuring more hearts find this story of hope. We invite you to comment below your spiritual reflections and share how this tender story of redemption has impacted your faith. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let us shine the light of God's hope in a world hungry for salvation.